All right, so I'd like to call to order the October 1, 2024 work session of the Lower Stafford Township Board of Supervisors, and ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation indivisible. Thank you. With that, that will bring us to our public comment period on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to be recognized? I believe there may be. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, please forward. I'm here as the township's representative to the Indian Valley Public Library. And we have a few comments we'd like to present this morning.
Absolutely.
Would you prefer me to come up to the table or?
Your pleasure. It's a little informal this morning.
First thing I'd like to do is introduce Tracy Reed, who is the new director
Good morning, Tracy.
of the Indian Valley Library. Tracy's been on board with us since midsummer. And I'd like to ask her just to give you a real brief synopsis of her background.
So as you heard, my name is Tracy. I have been the Indian Valley Public Library Director since June 1st. I come by way of the Montgomery County District Consultant's Office. So what that means is that it's a state mandated position that allowed me the 300-foot view of libraries in Montgomery County. I worked with all of the libraries in Montgomery County. And when the former director, Margie, said she was retiring, I'm like, this could be good. So I did some research and talked to people and it is. And I have to say that I am so happy to be your library director. It's not my library. I may say it's my library, but it's not. It's your library. It is the resources that are there because you generously support the library and help us help your residents. Some things that we have that you might not know about. Our backbone is always books. We will always be a book place, whether they are or print or whatever. But did you know that we have like movie screens that you can check out with a portable DVD projector? So if you want to do movie night in your backyard, but don't want to invest in it, your library card, right? We have the sidewalk crack weeder that that was mine too. So it's a little L-shaped thing where you just go in and you go between the sidewalk cracks and it weeds for you. That's called our Library of Things. So as we expand beyond just books and as we recognize what your residents and our library users need, we look at the things that can increase and make our quality of life better. You may not want to buy the sidewalk weeder. You may not want to buy the sandworm cake pan because your kid wants a Beetlejuice party. We have that stuff. We also have, museum passes and attraction passes and all of that you can check out with your library card for free to things like Mercer Museum and all of that. And I'm going to kind of stop there because I could ramble for days and now you don't want me to do that. But again, thank you for your support. I appreciate all that Lower Salford brings to the library and all that Doug brings to the library as our representative. So thank you, Doug.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You take donations for things like the cake pans and things along that line, but I don't think you realize that we've only ever donated.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's weird or oddball or you're not 100% sure, reach out to me and I'll let you know. But sometimes the weirder the better because it's something that you used once. We have a metal detector. So we had kids who are interested in maybe combing around. We've got all sorts of historical stuff around here. But you might not want to buy the metal detector because it's a lot of money. Try it out, check it out a couple times. But yeah, if you have stuff like that, you might be interested in donating, reach out. I'm happy to talk about it. But yeah, but we do still take book donations on Tuesday mornings. So yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So much.
The second thing I'd like to briefly go over is the library's proposed 2025 budget. Let me preface this by saying we're not here to ask you for more money.
Good, he didn't bury the lead.
Basically, the budget is not final yet. It's in draft form. It'll be presented to our board at the October meeting, voted on November. But basically, what it looks like is our income is about 1.2 million. Our expenses are 1.4 million. But before that number sinks in too much, let me explain something to you. Our income budget is based solely on the money we receive from the various municipalities that support the library and state aid. There are other income sources that we hope we receive during the year, but are not budgeted because we don't know if we'll get them or how much it will be. For example, grant money. We normally get at least one grant a year that might be around 30 or 40,000. We have an annual fund drive, which generates approximately 40 to 50,000 a year, sometimes more. And we occasionally get bequests. I mean, we got a bequest a couple of years ago for about 150,000 for the reading room to renovate that. So when you add all of those three unknowns, but likely, the deficit doesn't look as bad as it sounds on paper. So that's basically where we're at. The good news, the other good news is we have no information yet that would lead us to believe that any of the other participant municipalities are planning any major reductions in their funding. So we're working on the assumption that the income we're receiving will be pretty much the same in 25 as it was in 24, and we can make that work. So that's that. As Tracy said, we are also here to thank you for your continued and unwavering financial support for the library. It's very important to us. You are, you know, maybe I'm a home guy, but I'll tell you, you are sort of the lead municipality in this group, and we appreciate that. I've also just want to make a comment. It's our understanding that you are still working on this concept of the community center. And we want you to know that we're still interested in being a part of that if that works out that way. We have no other plans for any other site locations to build a new library. So we hope that it can work out for all of us. But we understand you have a lot of issues to work through and a lot of finances to look at. So we're just going to stay on the sidelines and let you do those things. Now, that completes my agenda for this morning. Are there any questions?
No. I know obviously each year ours is gonna have a slight increase in our budget. Don't remember the number off of that, just with our base tax rolls increasing. What's it look like for the library based on their tax rate?
If you know.
It should be similar to this year, 370. It will probably be a little higher than that, a few $1,000. Our assessed value goes up a little bit.
It's not going in the other direction.
Right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in this morning.
Okay.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for letting us.
Good seeing you.
Let us know when you have events at All River Park as well. Best to let people know as well.
Right.
I
And
think
also just notice if you do start hearing of something happening in one of the other municipalities and you need to come back and talk to us about those situations.
Sure.
Doors always open.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, we seriously view this as a partnership. So yes, we would not keep any other information from you that might be necessary for you to make your decisions. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, is there anyone else under public comment wishing to be recognized? All right, moving right along, Public Works Director, Mr. Jones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There were some projects, the Bernie Mill project. I've been playing contact with the contractors, project managers, so we'll have an update for you at the next meeting. Roberts Road Bridge, reached out to the Eagles, the residents that were affected by the closure, turnaround. sent them the revised plans. They had a couple of questions about and compensation for any additional right of way, and then basically punted that, those questions to the county. So they're working, hopefully working with the county. Roads and Bridges consultant, I asked about the removal of the bridge and to what extent, and I was told that everything is going to be removed to 2 feet below grade. That's their plan. They're gonna confirm that and let me know for sure. That was the initial response that I got from the county. Moving on, Oak Drive, right turn lane and sidewalk project. We did receive the signed deed of dedication from the property owners at 340 Oak Drive. And for the resolution for tomorrow night. To accept that deed of dedication. Still trying to get some communication with the property owner at 408 Moyer Road. It's the former property there. We just have not had a lot of success on that front. We'll keep trying. Yoder Road sidewalk, working with the affected property owners. There's a couple of those property owners that have trees on their property that ideally we would ask that they be removed or get permission for us to remove them as part of the project or in advance of the project to make the alignment better and avoid the need for any temporary construction easements and also sidewalk easements on their property, because the alternate route takes us outside of township's right of way. South of the quarry, I believe the clearing and grubbing work has started on that project. Base repair contract, we completed work on Yoder Road from Sunset to Freck Road. Primarily the shoulder wheel path where we were seeing deterioration and some wheel running. So we tried to get ahead of that before the road, just kind of blows up on us during the winter. If we have a winter.
Fingers crossed.
Canceled this year.
Also, did some work on Camp Wallow Road, from south, go down to the bridge and then part of the way up the hill, the other side of the bridge, and try to widen the road a little bit to make it a little safer, because there were spots where we were barely 18 feet. So we're trying to get 20 feet, 20 and a half feet to we can get 10-foot lanes on there. So we ran out of money halfway up the hill, and we'll continue that process next year as part of the base repair contract as well. Perkins Potomac Watershed Conservancy, they actually installed our floating treatment wetlands in Briarwood Pond. So
Saw some photos.
yeah, good job, Grace. The Public Works and Community Center project, Kent and I met with CKS to discuss the new location and layout and circulation and trying to figure all these things out so that they can come up with a concept plan for that location. Hopefully we'll have it in a couple of weeks. Grant projects, 63-113 signal modernization. Hopefully it's scheduled to start next week. The Main Street Adaptive project, that's a combined TST and GLG grants that were combined in one project. Stephanie, you want to talk about that since it's on the agenda for tomorrow night?
Absolutely. So in the package was a recommendation of award letter for Armor and Sons. We received 2 bids for the project, Armor and Lenai Electric. The low bid, give me 1 second, was $682,600 from Armor. As Doug mentioned, this is both the TST project and the Green Light Go funded project for roughly $585,000 worth of grant money. It does require a match in the area of $90,000. The base bid is a little over that amount, so there will be roughly $100,000 of a match assumed for this project. A couple things to note, there was really two items that we saw a significant difference in the estimating versus the bid price. You know, the Centrax adaptive system itself, plus the video detection costs were really made up the difference in that number. There's very little physical signal work involved, but you do need a signal contractor, obviously, to be the prime. The grant does expire in May of 2025 for the TST. We have been coordinating with Signal Control to have them prepared for the work and ordering equipment. Well, not technically ordering, but doing the prep work so that it can be installed and activated and completed before the end of the grant expiration date. What else? So we just are looking for a, you know, we've reviewed the bids, Armor. You know, everything looks good on their package. So we would recommend that the board consider awarding it tomorrow night.
Are those cameras, since they're new technology, going to be compatible with our system throughout? Is there going to be any issues there, do you sense?
There should not be any issues. They will be compatible.
Okay.
And this, I will add also that the item for the upgraded switches that was discussed over the summertime is also included in this bid. So that should resolve the issue, I'll say, with you know, some of the challenges that have been in the past.
So in summation, we're going to spend about 100 grand as a township, and we're going to get nearly 600,000 in return.
That is
to complete
correct.
this project.
Yes.
I like those numbers.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments for Steph? Carry on.
Thank
The
you.
other project that we received bids for is the striping and signage project for the bike lanes. This was part of the Arley grant. The bids were received, we're going to recommend that we defer that to November. Only 2 bids were received, so we did have some concern about the lack of response. We talked to a couple different contractors. I talked to the other contractor. There was a wide disparity in the bid numbers. So it concerned us a little bit. I talked to the contractor that's the high bidder, who also has our contract for maintenance of our lines. And just try to get some idea of, you know, why so much. And yeah, I was told that it was prevailing wage, they're out of town, and they got per diem for their guys, overnight stays and all that kind of. Yeah, okay, that doesn't add up to $170,000 difference.
That was we didn't know the other one was gonna be similar.
And I think part of the part of the issue, I think, was just the timing of the bid. With everybody scrambling to get everything in by the end of the year. These guys do a lot of work with paving companies and a lot of PennDOT work. So everybody's pushing the envelope as far as weather to try to get things paved and then get it striped. So we thought that was going to make a difference, but we considered trying to rebid it maybe in the spring or in January. But not sure we're going to get anything different because, you know, there's just not that much. I mean, if they were within 10% of one another, you know, and still high, then maybe. But I just don't think putting off rebidding or rejecting everything and rebidding at a later date is going to achieve the results that we're looking for. I think we've got a good number. The low bidder, never worked with them before, but a lot of my counterparts in the county have worked with them and have no issues with the work that they've done. So pretty confident in, you know, in the quality of the work. So I just think we're going to defer to November. So this way it pushes the work into the spring when time is not of the essence. And then we can coordinate that work with the paving work that we had scheduled for this year on the Indian Creek Road. That didn't want to go ahead and do that and then not have this project come through. So then I'd have to restripe again for the winter, and I think it just works out better that way. So that is the plan, so that would be on your agenda for the November. The Main Street sidewalk project, met with the sign contractor about relocating business signs that are affected by the project, hopefully have pricing this week. And so the solicitor is looking into the notification requirements for Smile Realty to get them on board with the project.
There is one business that mentioned to me that they may want to replace their sign with a new sign.
That was an option, that was so discussed with the sign contractor, because it's like renovating an old house, you know, you never know what you're gonna get into, so it might just be easier just to install a new sign and then remove the old. And then we can, you know, have a little bit of time to transplant any vegetation, any bushes, shrubs, those kinds of things, so he's gonna give me numbers.
Great.
Department activities, continue working on the basketball court and the hockey rink at Booker. The weather has not been our friend lately for that project, so it's really taken an exorbitant amount of time. Should have the basketball court done hopefully today, and then the hockey rink done by middle of next week. Roadside mowing and the meadow mowing's currently going on. Also, we've finished the Summerwind Trail, they just topsoil work along the edge of the pavement.
Looks good, by the way.
Yes, it does.
Just some of the things that are on your agenda for tomorrow night, the construction equipment rental, with operator, fulfilling wage contract. When we bid that, last year, there were, options for 2 one-year extensions as part of the contract. So I'm requesting authorization to exercise one of those options to continue that contract. The contractor is Sachs and Sons, developed a pretty good relationship over the last few years. They do good work for us and they do to maintain the pricing for next year. Authorization to advertise for the snowplow for our loader, that's what we discussed at the last meeting. And just the affirmation of the award for the 2024-2025 consortium salt contract. At Riverside, I believe.
Yep, Riverside, right.
Yeah. The supplier, at a bid of $62.60 per ton delivered. Just as we participate in both the CoStars, which is a state contract, and the Montgomery County Consortium contracts, and so that we have alternatives. So supply chain issue with one or the other, and trying to wean off of the CoStars contract because it's significantly higher, significantly more costly. For this coming season, the CoStars price is $77.06. Wow. That's a $15 difference per ton. So it's not insignificant.
Yeah, so the coating price is down a little over $2.
From last year. Yeah. And the CoStar's price went up $4, I think it was. Wow. Yeah. You would think with the state buying power that we get better numbers,
You would think.
but anyway. And that is all that I have. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Jones this morning? Nope.
Thank you,
All
Doug.
right, Thanks,
Thank
Doug. Chief Medley.
The update I have is for cameras. Cameras have been installed. Total of 8 cameras, separate poles. Maybe think left. Our system. This week.
Excellent.
Just have to. I was anxious to look at our next part.
Gonna be my question.
Yeah.
Who's next?
At the park.
That did not happen.
Yeah, actually, we're looking at, Grace is looking into a grant for solar powered parking lots. Not 100% sure the technology is there yet, but I think it's a lot better than obviously what it was. Montgomery Township, I think, has had them at their community center for about 8 years, and they're not thrilled with it, but 8 years is a lifetime in that technology, I think. So I think we're looking at, talking to the vendor, the supplier, to see if they can give us some contacts for other installations so that we can talk to them and see how they're working. And we're not looking at, working light conditions, it's just security lighting, just to get people, from the playing fields to the parking lot safely, so that they have that comfort level. So that might be an opportunity as well for the cameras. Once we get these parking lot lights installed, if it happens, but we're also looking at a PICO grant to get some funding for that as well.
So Park Avenue is the issue near electricity.
Right.
And getting.
Or the lack thereof. It's no good place to run it from.
So the possible next choice would probably be Bergie Mill with the bridge construction going on. The contractor at Wawa installed a pole with electricity. The township took that pole over. We installed cameras on that pole. So I would hope that that's probably what we do Bergie Mill. Good. So the timing of that will probably be in the next year and a half. That contract actually starts and and the construction completes.
There's no schedule for the bridge.
No, they've let the contract.
It's been awarded, so they don't have their trailers in place down there yet.
They need to come to us because they're gonna be.
Correct. That means we'll have some say perhaps in where those poles get placed for future use. Sounds good to me. All right, any other questions for the chief? Moving right along, Mr. Butte, Building and Zoning Director.
Chairman, so before I get to my update, spoken to the stuff on 73 Freshman Road. This was the project that I introduced at the last work session. And Judith Tango is here to present that. She requested to do the presentation in front of you this morning. And we can get it off to.
Please, you certainly may.
Good morning. I certainly can't top all of that. I mean, you have the library not asking for any money from your budget. You have $600,000 worth of grant funding and you're canceling winter. So I feel like
Keep all that in mind.
I feel, I was just gonna say, that is why I'm moving here. No, very impressive and I don't think I can top all that this morning. So, but with all that said, my husband and I'm Judith Danko. My husband and I purchased the lot number 2 for the Tuttle subdivision. And what we are trying to accomplish, I sent some information in, and Mr. Butte, thank you so much for putting all of that up on the screen. I was trying to provide you with some Google information, and obviously I am not the best at this. So I was hoping to pass this out. I know I had given, I hate pushing things across.
We have it fixed.
In here, an extra one. So basically, I had watched the video from the last meeting and I saw there were some questions. The septic area would not be moved. That's all in stone. That was, the perk was approved. That's all done. I did speak with Suzanne Banks, explained to her what we were trying to accomplish if we were allowed to do that. She said absolutely no issues. Knowing that we would just be having longer pipe and the tanks would be proposed, closer to the home, obviously. And the Tuttle Red Barn is really the only thing that would be at our front yard area other than some trees and so forth. The house itself is more towards the other lot as their frontage. Our driveway, we're proposing to come down the driveway and then come right into the house itself. And the proposed house area, what we were trying to do was pull it forward more because of the fact that it's hard to see, and I don't know what you have there. It's hard to really see, but if you were to look at the plans, there's more trees towards the rear of the lot. If you're coming directly on Crestman and you're looking at the lot itself, obviously you see the red barn, and then behind there is where the lot is. In the front, towards the left area, upper front, it's more, it's more open. And you can kind of see that on the Google that I showed you. It's more open towards the front. So once you start to go back is when you start to get into the heavier trees. So up front is really the crosshatch area. So what we were trying to accomplish was to not disturb as many trees in the rear. We're proposing a ranch style home. And what we're actually experiencing by doing that is we're trying to come up with several different plans. Some of the plans, if everybody can see, we have the garage going to the side. So what happens is when you do that, you end up with 30 some feet, which, so now you would not only be 93.75 feet back, setback, you would also be another 30 some feet. So what we were trying to do was accomplish pulling it up, and I kind of tried to draw, and I'm not very good at drawing, showing that the garage, where it would be. So what we're trying to ask is, could we be up further instead of the 93.75? Could we be up further, closer to the 75, which is the normal front yard setback? And then the Tuttle rear setback has another 75 feet on his property, as you can see there. So it's really the garage that would kind of be more in the area that we're requesting. And we're also requesting, we don't know, maybe it would be best to have it 15 feet more forward, maybe 10. We're not sure. What we were trying to do was come up with a house plan that would work with this and disturb less trees. So we were going to come up with a different house plan if this was not a viable option, to try to, put the garage in a different way. But we really like this plan. So that's kind of where we were with that. The other issue is that, excuse me, if we do go a different way, again, we're still, pretty far back. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions for me that I can help answer.
The only thing I'm looking at here, if you look at that plan, can you just mirror the whole thing and put the garage on the upper part of the drawing? And then it would eliminate this whole problem, wouldn't it? You can move the house forward, the garage would mirror your plan. Then you'd come in straight instead of coming across.
Yeah, you're basically saying that on both of these plans, the driveway has cut across the lot to the far side to get to a garage, whether it was the one that was designed or yours.
Mhm.
If the house was flipped, the garage would be on the flagpole side, so you'd have less driveway and less disturbance coming in that way.
So the reason we don't want to do that is the lot gently slopes to the right.
Right.
So the slope area is, if you look at the plan,
Yeah,
it slopes to the right. So that's why the proposed garage is on the left, because of the slope that you have. So actually, stormwater, all of the reasons that you do your planning on the plan is actually, this is the better way to do it. We've actually explored that option, and again, it's sloped to the point where we could probably do a walkout basement to the right. So that's really the reason. Your more level areas more to the left, your more clear area is more to the right and the left. So actually the areas that we're proposing are more open as of now. And it's actually more wooded on the right side. Everything's more towards the right.
what, based on, so we saw your plan and now we have what was the approved plan, which is the grading plan. And yes, you talked about the septic system, which I appreciate. the stormwater facility that was identified on here, are you intending to use that same general location for stormwater?
The reason I'm here before you today is what we have to do is we have to go through the permitting
Right.
process. We would then, once we have our answers, because, and not to deviate from your question, but right now the septic system is actually with VW Consulting. They can't finish until we
Right.
know what we're doing. And also all of our applications that we would like to put in, we really have to have answers to know. And if anything would need to be moved, we would show it on the plans that we're going to submit to Mr. Bucky's office.
The nature of my question is, on this plan, there is a general area of disturbances identified by the squiggly tree line
Mhm.
from the septic system over outside the stormwater and around.
Yes,
Even if you move that house forward the 30 feet or the 25 feet, you'd like to move it forward,
Oh, no, it would-
that area of disturbance would still be practically the same. So I'm not sure where the preservation of trees comes from moving the house forwards. It's the other two fixtures sort of, or the other two items, the stormwater and the septic, sort of establish the rear line of disturbance. Does that
Well,
make sense?
it does. The area of disturbance for the septic, that's already open. There would be no disturbance. So, but to the right,
Yeah.
there would be disturbance, but if the stormwater would need to be moved up, then that's what we would do to have less disturbance.
Did they test for the stormwater facility in that location with because usually they test that ahead of time to make sure that there's like infiltration or anything. They didn't do any of that.
The septic bed, everything was
You're
completed,
right.
but nothing else was,
So the stormwater facility could move forward.
could possibly, yes,
And you had
Yes.
made a comment that the normal setback is 75.
correct,
On a flag lot, the normal setback is 93.7.
correct. Yes, that's-
I personally am not inclined to approve something like this, because if we do it for this, we might as well just change all the drawings in the township, because then we have to approve it for everybody. I mean, it is, we're setting a precedent here. So I don't, to save a couple trees, I think we just need to leave it where it was. Personally, that's my feeling. If this came before the zoning hearing board, it'd be a flat out. You bought the house, you bought the property under this condition, like you knew what had to be done. Just to save a couple trees is, you know, you can always plant more trees. In my
Sure,
feeling, you should just leave it back.
we could come up with a lot of other reasons other than the
Well,
trees.
it's
I mean,
not
if-
that much of a hardship is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
in
you have a cliff yet you're worried about, or, you know, some sort of thing like that, but you bought the property under these conditions. That
Sure.
would be my feelings.
Sure, we could come up with other reasons too, which we've talked about actually. Shortening of the driveway because you're impervious surface, all of those items, stormwater, obviously. It actually shortens the driveway. It does a lot of different things that are actually more advantageous.
If you
Than,
flip the house, that would shorten the driveway also.
but you really can't flip the house with or that was what we looked at. So you can't flip the house. What you're looking at is what you really need to do. You need to keep the garages to the left.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments?
Before making any decision too, I would really want to kind of just double check with our engineers and make sure everything's, where the water runoff will be, if there's any disturbance with the driveway. This isn't my expertise. Usually I read the reviews, ask my questions there. So I don't want to just go ahead and say, okay, let's just move it up without trying to see another angle of this as well. I would feel a bit more comfortable with, and I appreciate the
Sure.
information that you supplied as well.
Sure, and I did call the engineer and I spoke with Ms. Fountain. And I spoke with her because wanted to know what, her thoughts were too, regarding this, obviously. What we're trying to say is we have to go through the motions of the permitting process to begin with, which would address all of those items. So we certainly, as you said, we bought the lot. We certainly would not want to do anything that would be not good for, whatever we are planning to do here today. So all of the things that we would need to do with the permitting process would cover these items. What you see on the plan is always just a proposed with, the driveway and the house. Those are proposed items. Those items can be changed. That's just a proposed concept when they do the subdivision and land development process. So when we do apply for all of the items that we need, you will have all of those things that are reviewed with your engineer. So, so nothing does get done that's not viable. So that's why I'm also trying to, present in this way, knowing that the final determination is obviously going to go by the building zoning and engineer. That's how everything would be working to begin with. We certainly wouldn't be making decisions that the engineers would be making those decisions as to what would be the most viable.
Yeah, I mean, based on the plan Danko has shown, I'm not offended by what you have presented because the primary residence is holding the 93.5 foot, whatever setback, and it's really just an angular garage that's coming up there. But, and understand why someone would design it that way with the angles coming in the driveway, and it's actually less impact than the side entry garage that you're
It
trying to
is.
wrap around. So it's obviously has, in my opinion, has merit. I do echo my colleague's concern, though, is right now we are receiving more and more of these kind of subdivisions than larger ones. And we have a number of these types of flag lot configurations, and it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And why would we continue to enforce one over the other unless there is a true hardship justification or it made the plan better? I can see where this, in my mind, does make this plan
It does.
a little bit better. I
Thank
don't
you.
know how you would craft it to the limited basis of just, a small percentage of the setback versus the whole thing. I would not be nearly as in favor if that whole house was shifted forward to the
To the front line,
the
yes.
775.
And neither would we, actually. That's not really what we're trying to do. Again, we were trying to come up with the best plan and then realizing, there's a lot more trees in the rear. Also, pulling it front does help, again, with impervious surface. There's many other things that it actually helps with. It would be the best proposed way to do something of this nature. Also, we also have a lot that's right next to us to the left. So every time that you're coming into that, and if you would follow that path, you'd be actually aiming your car at the person's house to the left. Now everything's, to the left. This is more coming right in. It's more a direct access. You're really not affecting anyone. It's actually less of a driveway. Again, less impervious surface. There's all kinds of other benefits. But again, we certainly were trying to not cut as many trees in the rear, because the driveway alone, there's being, that's a lot of trees in the driveway area there. They're not big, but it's just,
Stanka, do you know how much of a disturbance at the current proposal, how many trees you foresee you would have to cut down if you were to go ahead with the current?
What's the saving versus?
Right, so.
I can tell you that if you do see what I have provided you, you can see that the open area again is in the front. We didn't count, but you can clearly see that the fullness is to the rear, that it's open in the front. Yeah. We didn't count. We just, walked the lot with the engineer and, everybody was like, gee, it would be nice to pull everything up.
And I also do, these gentlemen know I've echoed those same things with waivers, we have to draw a line somewhere.
Sure.
Something that, as Mr. Canavan said, the hardship where it is, I'd be curious to see the disturbance. I do know there was some on the driveway. That was one reason why I think we had it. I think some, escrow to go in there, that was something that we did discuss. So knowing the disturbance that this one did cause, we tried to cover that. I was curious how much that was.
Yes. No, and I certainly understand your thoughts. That's why waivers were created, though. There's always a different circumstance for every certain lot, every certain circumstance. So that's really how I was looking at this. I do understand what you're talking about. Everyone certainly has a different circumstance, a different lot. And that's really why I'm before you.
Well, our township ordinance has actually, it's interesting, has commingled two issues. Typically setbacks are all within the province of zoning, okay? And zoning is, this would typically be, if you wanted to violate the front yard setback, you go to the zoning hearing. We
Right.
don't do anything about that. For whatever reason, the folks before us that drafted this ordinance, put this provision in the subdivision land development
Yes.
ordinance to increase the front yard setback by a percentage on flag lots. And, I'd spoken to Michael about this after our last meeting too, just out of curiosity, sort of thinking through that. Because I would also say this is a more critical issue if someone was putting a flag lot in with a half-acre lot or a quarter-acre lot.
Yes.
Because of the spacing of rear yards and whatnot. In this particular zoning district, yes, it's nice to have the extra feet. You already have a minimum of 150 feet in this stacking between a rear yard and a front yard. That is there is something, here that's sort of a little bit different than a typical zoning discussion and whatnot. So you're right.
Yes.
There are
That's-
different
that's-
lots have different. I think what we struggle with, and Kevin, I don't know if you were going to, and this is why I had asked at the last meeting, I would really prefer to see the actuals. And I know this is a chicken and egg discussion for you, but to understand how much less driveway, how much less disturbance, how much truly does that make this a unique enough case then for that to warrant consideration or not?
Correct. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, I can tell you just by looking at, the plans, it's very clear that the disturbance coming around to come around with that driveway, you're looking at, the extra 25 feet plus coming into the garages, you're probably looking at 30 or 40 feet in there. Because you would also be creating a backup area in here on the side. So on the side, so you can see how the snake driveway comes around, you'd be coming in from the side. So the whole left side would be driveway area because you'd have to back out to get there. So you're looking at least 30, 40 feet on both ways because the garage is at least 30 some feet. And you're
Assuming the house is in the same position with a ranch house, you're taking up more footprint. So, and again, I'm not gonna, because we don't have actuals. I think that's really what the difference may come in, because that house may be able to sit up higher because you're not having to wrap around there and you may have less dirt to move and that may all be relevant from that standpoint.
correct. We just didn't want to, we're already in limbo with the septic. It's being designed, but we can't finish because, we don't know where the house will be. We've come up with, and I can tell you, we've been spending a lot of, actually 2 months worth of time with the house plans. All of these are all different types of plans, trying to figure out what would be the least disturbance, again, driveway, trees, all of the above. We also have to get water back there. We also have to get electric back there. This actually shortens the water, it shortens the electric. It does a lot of things.
But again, I would argue if you're not moving the primary house any closer than 93 feet, obviously that's not the best house plan for this lot, in my opinion. But you can still move the whole house up to that front 93 feet rather than doing this and save your space and not get the relief. You could take that same ranch house and instead of having an angle on the garage, run it parallel with that front thing, and the driveway would be a little longer, but you would still be in a better position than you are here. So that's why there are ways to overcome it without getting the relief also, and that's why.
Well, that plan shows you at the,
But what I'm saying, that's a 2-story house
Right.
that's different than what you're talking
Right.
about building,
right, but it's at the 93 now.
but only the garages.
Yes,
All right, so what I'm saying is you just take that garage and get rid of the 45 on it and make it could sit, as a front entry paralleling the front yard setback, and you would still have the ranch house all the way right where it's sitting right now. So there are too many unknowns from that standpoint.
Or you can move the house back 10 feet and less of an angle in the garage and probably fit in there. So there's some things that can be done, I think, very easily, rather than moving this setback.
And again, I'd want to know honestly how many trees were
Right.
taken down as well, just to kind of give me an idea.
And
One of the things,
caliber of trees, that's
one of the
really
things-
small scrub brush.
right, one of the things I use with caution, it might not be totally this too, but you know, we've had waivers in the past, as it was mentioned, these flag lots, this is something that sublotting is. I don't want to have to set a precedent where, yes, Mr. Tuttle is there now, we have his mail, but the next person coming in, now they're not getting the same thing that we designed that area for, because there's a house closer there. And, you know, that's why I would want to see the trees, want to see how much of a hardship it is. I'm all for, and if you go back and watch when we had this original subs thing, you know, I'm all for saving the trees, to argue that as well. But again, I would want to really try to see the hardship there. It's one of those things where I appreciate with you bringing in here. But again, as we said, that house, okay, if it doesn't fit there, maybe just a little different design or something. And I'm more worried about how it would look in the future. If we do this with all of our sublots, we've had things in the past where you put enough waivers on it, it might as well be a different zoning thing, another R level. And that's not the situation here, but that's as Mr. Sherman said, that precedent that we start to run into, where we're going to have more of these situations. And I understand, and we're very glad to have you here, but at the same time, you understand that one of the reasons that brought you here was the, you know, the atmosphere of what Lower Salford is. And these are some of the reasons that help keep it that way.
Sure. And I wanted to just kind of say, the reason it's not in the zoning is because it's in the Saldo. And that allows you as the supervisors and the planning commission, when these plans are brought to you, you could get a waiver from the developer at that time.
Right.
So that's really why I'm here today also, because this is something that could have really been proposed from the beginning. And these are the types of things that allow you as the supervisors to make the decision, because you have that ability
And if it
to
was
take
the
the.
decision, the plan calculation, and other things that
Right.
would justify. So, Mr. Bergman.
The issue for me at least is, one certainly is the precedent, not just throughout the district, but you know, you've got a house that's, it's the same situation right next door. So they conceivably would come back in and ask for the same relief. And I just don't see where this layout couldn't be tweaked to meet the 93-foot setback and everything be fine. So I just, that's my side of it. If you want to pursue it further, my recommendation would be to get a plot plan, get it laid out and explain to us why there's a savings or why there's a hardship. And, you know, maybe we'll reevaluate it differently, but that's how we see it today.
Yeah, here's the,
I feel the same way.
yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. The path is we can do one of two things. We can give you a hard no right now, which I think that's generally with the information that's presented. I'm not sure there's support for it. Or you know, I at least, I know I'm still of an open mind if more detailed information is presented to give it some additional level of consideration. And I think some other people have expressed if trees, disturbance and other things may be presented, there might be a way to make that case. But so I just don't know
Depending the level of
what's
hardship.
fairer for you from the standpoint of, you know, I know in my life, sometimes the hard no saves me a lot of money down the road because I just know what path to go on and I don't pursue a blind road.
Right.
But I would leave that as the direction for you from that standpoint.
Sure. And that's really why we didn't spend any more money on
Right.
engineering and
Sure.
all of these things,
We
because
understand.
you know, the cost just continues to escalate.
Yeah, no
We'd
sense
rather
spending
put
the
the
money.
money into the driveway in the house and not, you know, that was really our
I
reason.
would suggest that if you come up with a house plan that really works and all of a sudden you realize it's requiring something that blows up on you, we're reasonable people when it comes down to it.
Sure.
But right now, I'm not sure this has presented enough of a reason to, at least in my mind, to alter it.
Sure. And I have to say this, it was proposed by the builder and the engineer. So I'm going also by professionals that do this every day, believing that this would be the best case scenario. So that's really the other reason I'm before you, because suggested would really be better. So if I'm hearing from an engineer that would be the better way to do things, I'm obviously going to take that cue and run with it. And that's really what we've done
fine.
so far.
Happy you came in and talked to us about it.
Well, thank you for listening. I'm not sure what we'll do at this point, because again, we really didn't want to spend any more funds towards, you know, all of all of these types of.
Pro-
We
positive.
we really would like to, yes, we'd really like to get the building permit and application and so
We'd like to
forth. And, you know, and have a home built and tax revenue taking place, that type of
Welcome
thing.
you to the
So,
community.
yes, thank you very much. Thank you for hearing me. Have a good
Have a
day.
good day. All right, Mr. Buki.
Department update. The free permit for it, as you already know, is done its date for the rest of the year. We don't have any zoning hearing board applications coming up. The planning commission has one item on the agenda. That's 645 Store Road is another 4-lot subdivision update. And your board of supervisors meeting tomorrow, I don't have anything from that perspective. However, Shahada that I've already seen, Shahada, they presented the requested waivers. And they needed to resubmit and have more of a clean review letter and clear out outline waivers before they act in front. So they did submit, so you should expect them in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments for Michael?
Thank you.
All right, moving along, Mr. Dutkowsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the manager's report is a review of the September 4th minutes. Anybody have any questions, comments, changes?
On the last public comment, as I asked about the process for appointing someone to the vacancy of the planning commission, I just want to reiterate that I actually asked Mr. Sharon and Mr. Canavan if they had any input, because I knew how the process worked. I just wanted to make sure we didn't establish it, then we discussed it at the meeting before. Just reading it makes it sound like I didn't know.
Okay.
Just want to clarify, I was well aware.
All right,
And I don't think we officially decided to decide to ask the planning commission to review. We did say we would definitely do that. But yeah, no, I guess the rest is okay. We didn't officially decide that that was going to be set in stone as the only way to review. But the only thing I wanted to clarify was just that first part. I'm good with that.
And we'll make the change.
Thank you.
The next item is the review of tomorrow night's meeting agenda. Under unfinished business, the recommendation to award the PennDOT Traffic Signal Technologies and Greenlight Go Main Street, Town Pike Adaptive Traffic Signal Control System upgrades, phase 1 and phase 2, as reviewed by Stephanie Butler earlier in the meeting. Under new business resolution 2024-16, accepting the required right-of-way deed of dedication along Oak Drive. This is the Schnaubelt property in relation to the installation of the sidewalk at Oak, part of that widening project there. Item C is authorization to advertise snowplow for the case 621G wheel loader. And item D, the authorization to award the 2024-25 rock salt contract to Riverside Construction Materials as discussed by Mr. Jones.
Joe, the only thing I would note, just so people aren't confused, unless, is Mr. Johnson coming back again tomorrow night?
No, I think that would, yeah, we'll change that. That might be.
Yeah,
So they're at the top there.
yeah, so just in case people are looking at online, not expect to see him.
Get asked for the work session.
Yeah.
From this community. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the review of the 2025 budget. I think I sent everyone copies. If you don't have a copy, I have some hard copies here. Oh, yeah. There's not in the office.
I guess, please.
Sure. So these are the minor funds, which usually don't have too much discussion, as a lot of it is just fund in and fund out. Liquid fuel fund, we'll probably get a little more detail as we move through the process. I spoke with Doug. He expects the expenditures in this to be about 650,000. We're being a little less expense this year because of the not getting to the Indian Creek Road project. So that is just going to be area. We expect our government revenue, the liquid fuels, to be approximately the same, maybe a little bit higher than what we received last year based on our experience and our history.
Just as a question, just, and it's fine to have the funds carried forward, but what's the benefit of having $90,000 in there at the end of 2025 versus 50, which would allow us to put another, 40-some thousand in the repairs?
Well, nothing in particular, and that's
Okay.
based on, again, that's based on what the number that Mr. Jones gave me.
Right.
What he expects that, those projects add up to for next year.
Right.
I mean, obviously, that number, those funds stay there and they get used at some other point. We certainly in the past, look at some of the previous years had certainly higher number than those.
Yeah.
And I think over time, we've been kind of putting that down to, I think it's a reasonable number. But, you never know. You have an issue on the road that, an emergency issue,
Winter. But yeah, but I'm just
Still
thinking,
working.
Right.
What cost to everything, so that number most likely will change.
Right, but I look at a capital budget if we have an emergency. This is really money coming from the state to work on the roads. My only thought would be, I'd rather see it allocated in the line item. If he doesn't use it, it's, if he wants to use it and it's not allocated, we need to amend the budget. If
Right.
budgeted for and he doesn't quite get to it, then it just goes into the carry forward for
Right.
next year. So, based on how you adjust it, I would at least recommend maybe just look at that being 50 for the carry forward and, put a little bit extra in the repairs work. Just so that he has that flexibility.
I would just, as we were saying, to get Doug's opinion on that too, how much would weather affect that and whatnot? I guess obviously we'd have a better idea.
Well, and what we don't have account for is salt for.
That's what I'm thinking.
Materials coming in, liquid fuels, we also have a general fund, try to use general fund first, but if we get a bad winter, then some of that $90,000 will disappear as well.
But then it should be budgeted somewhere if it's
Well,
going.
a few years ago, we stopped budgeting it out, but.
Right.
Because we wanted to concentrate on the maintenance of the road.
Right.
And so we, fully budgeted our salt allocation out of general.
I guess all I'm getting to is from a budget standpoint, it should be allocated somewhere if we're gonna spend it.
Correct.
Not just know that we have a reserve though, because we would need to amend a budget then at that point.
Well, we certainly need to amend it with pen.
Right. Yeah, so put it in somewhere and then,
Take
yeah,
So your proposal, 690,000.
yeah. Or wherever Doug gets it, but at least have less
Yeah, again,
as a carry forward number.
fire protection fund. Mr. Canavan and I have been meeting on a semi-regular basis with the fire company about future needs, and the funding for the department. With the recent, changes by the state for the township being able to increase, fire tax and ambulance tax. I've increased the fire tax here, because I think one of the things we did talk about was trying to fund the fire company through only the fire tax, and instead of this mix of general fund and so forth, which is what we've done with the ambulance as well. But with the changes that were passed by the legislature this year, I think it's probably best to try to keep those lanes clean on each of those items, so the public knows where this money is coming from and how we're funding those items. So the increase, the millage increase on real estate tax for the fire fund is proposed at $399,000. So the donation to the fire company would go from approximately 198,000 to 295,000. This would help cover costs, additional costs such as equipment, bunker gear. They do have to every few years have to go and purchase new gear for the firefighters at a considerable sum. I think the number they were talking to us was it $65,000
For the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole thing. I mean, obviously that would cover all of that, but they were going to do that over a number of years, but that number would assist them with that. Additionally, they're talking about some equipment, large equipment, fire apparatus, ladder truck for, I think, 2030 or 2031. And so it did add a line item for a fire capital equipment line item here for $100,000, that we could add $100,000 each year so that they would have additional funding, possibly a way to finance those items such as we do with our lease purchase program that we use on much of our larger equipment.
And I think that in the discussions, it's been good because both we're looking at what we need to do as a township to support that enterprise, and they're looking at, rather than, okay, we need $450,000 this year, how do we come up with it that year? Let's plan this out over a long period of time and have a continual flow. And really, the goal would be for us, if we can support them appropriately financially, we don't want to get into the individual management of what they're doing, but we also aren't looking for them to come to us a year before and say, we need $500,000.
Yeah.
We have slowly and steadily supported you, so it's an even flow through the budget process during that time period. And, you know, I think inflation has hit them as it has everybody else with regards to gear. They've also been successful in recruiting new members and junior members and other things, and that all costs money to get them appropriately outfitted. And you know, I think this is, at least in my opinion, supporting them financially at the right level so they can focus on firefighting and not have to focus so much on fundraising is probably our strongest position to be in as board supervisors.
I echo that. One of my favorite things to do was always go to firefighter breakfasts, especially growing up, but Harleysville never had one. The reason why is they don't have to put that time in because we have this. You don't have to do the boot drops and stuff. And I think if we go into a world where we would have to fund them differently, we'd be a lot more higher budget than what we're looking at now.
Well, certainly if we had a higher full-time firefighter.
Yeah,
we'd be looking at, you know, probably $2 to $3 million.
Yeah.
Which stands to higher than what we have here.
And we want to keep this dialogue open and, you know, but this is from based on what we've had the discussions, this will be a good step forward for them.
And I might be jumping up a little bit, Joe, but I noticed your hand right back here. Is
Yeah,
that
that
the
was my
actual
own
price?
price, but that's based on the fire and the ambulance,
It's
that's what we see as an average tax increase based on the average set.
And I think it's important to say, so we're looking at $30.50 more of a tax increase as a whole for, you know.
Right. But it also gives the resident, and they can look at the budget and they
And
can
know where
see
it's
that this is what we're spending on fire, this is what we're spending. And it's not getting mixed in with general fund.
Right.
Yep. Does 100,000 capital fund, would that stay with the township until they spend it, or does that go to the fire company?
My thought is it stays in this fund.
Good
It stays in this fund and it will grow. Next year, that number would go 200,000. Following year until they spend it. And they may come to us and say, we need, you know, X amount of dollars this year, and they'll spend it out of that, but it would continue to grow.
Cool. Great.
Good.
Okay, the library fund, again, as I noted, when Mr. Johnson was here, those numbers will be pretty much the same. If you look at the back sheet where we show the real estate levy, based on history, actually, we do a little bit better than 97%, but that's what we've used as our number. We've been closer to 98, 99% of collections. So we're showing 376. I did put in 370. But you know, it could be higher than that by a few $1,000s. But you know, I just, as I think I've said in the past, I like to be a little conservative.
In the right neighborhood.
Yeah, right. And that money wouldn't stay with us anyway. Generally, we give them what we have.
Yeah.
In the budget, so in the fund, so even if we did receive 376, that's 6,000.
Yeah.
Park board fund. Again, this is a fairly standard issue. There's not many new items in there. I think a few years ago, we did bump up the tree maintenance, and I know that Doug's used that fund excessively because we've had a lot of issues. But we didn't have a big savings this year because we had the chainsaw training at the township, and we were able to get a review for a number of trees out of the park, so we didn't have to pay for that. So that will end up being a, total revenue, we have a starting cash of about $40,000, revenue 152,800, and then the total expense of 185,600, with an ending cash of 71,430.
A minor item I have on there. We haven't replaced any signs for years, so that came out of the budget, but
Right.
we may have need for a new sign this year, so we may want to
Okay,
consider putting something in there for that, because the park board is considering a possible.
Do you know which sign?
alternate name.
oh, it's
Park
for,
Avenue.
Park Avenue.
There may be a new person in there.
Okay.
And refresh my memory, I ask this every year, the $75,000 we transfer to the capital fund out of the park fund. What is that for?
That's for various equipment costs and other project costs. It goes into, if you look in the, well, when we do go to the capital.
Right.
There's park projects in there.
Okay, so it's just so that the park tax is supporting that park capital.
Capital.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So work with the park. they-
Okay. Okay.
It's a good investment as far as park fund is concerned. Spend more than this.
Oh, no, I get that. I just, yeah, because transferring for the sake of transferring, yeah.
Okay, the ambulance service, and again, as I just mentioned, fire, the legislation was changed, which allows the township to go up to 5 mils for ambulance service. We were at 0.5 mils last year. I'm recommending 0.7 mils. This will cover the costs that we were taking out of the general fund as well. And again, this number might change slightly based on the numbers we received from Freedom Valley,
But in real dollars, it's the same amount as
It's
what
the
we're saying
same-
in Green
it's the
Valley,
same
we're just not
amount.
having to take anything out of.
we're not
general
taking
fund. Yeah.
150,000 out of general fund and then raise the rest because we were at our limit, but for ambulance fund last year.
Joe, have you heard of any other municipalities increasing their millage perhaps? that would
Actually, I
help
did,
us?
I was at the ICMA conference in Montgomery Township, okay, talked about this. And she did say that they're planning increasing their donation to,
Do they use Freedom Valley?
no, they use
BMSC.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, anybody that you might know of using Freedom Valley.
Maybe Limerick does.
Is Limerick going up anymore? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably be increasing theirs. They were a little lower than us, and that was based on the initial numbers
Yeah.
from the initial study of where the population and also service and so forth. Though I will say that we're still considerably higher than any other municipalities around us.
Particularly the municipalities that aren't
That's
participating.
using BMX, nobody has been supporting their.
Is it worthwhile to reach out to the other municipalities that aren't just the millage? I mean, I don't know. As obviously, they have their budget, we have our budget. And if somebody reached out to me, I was. But I'm just saying,
The suggestion was made
maybe show
in,
up, go to their meeting, say, hey, guys.
But-
That,
the suggestion was made and also that if they didn't make that, they would not be receiving service from Freedom Valley, and they decided to not seek service from Freedom Valley, so it's just us and Limerick at this point in that. But I think you will see, and even we've had some discussions with other directors of other medical, of other ambulances. This is coming across the county. It's just a
Right.
matter of when
Yeah, we're a bit.
the
ahead of
crisis
curve.
point hits with that. Yeah.
now, and one more thing too, and I don't want to misquote it, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember when we originally did this and took the, well, the majority of the price here, that gives our residents the opportunity when you used to have a membership to the ambulance, where it waives the insurance, right? It just covers for the ride.
Correct.
That is something that.
Yes, every resident is covered as if they were a member.
Right, I think that's important just to say for anybody watching that is a benefit that we do have, but and that for yearly thing is. I would imagine over $100 for like membership, I remember.
Yeah, it worked out to be the tax was actually
Yeah,
cheaper
this
for
tax
making the
would be
contribution.
35,
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this is showing an increase in this tax, but we're not taking it out of the government fund, right? It kind of. Traffic impact fee, there's really not a lot of discussion here. This just funds in until we get to the point of doing basically, this is all for, the 113 bypass relocation.
Realignment.
Okay.
So at the next work session, we'll have, first draft of, the general fund and the capital fund, and we'll make any adjustments to these minor funds.
Sounds good.
But at this point, I'm not anticipating any general fund increase.
That is good to hear.
So the last thing on the agenda is, the planning commission vacancy recommendations. I think where is that? In your packet with 3, resumes, letter of interest. So I didn't know how the board wanted to move forward.
How many did we receive? It's, I thought we had more, that was what we were talking about last time, we had an abundance.
We had, let's see.
And did we reached out to those who reached out before, right? to see
Yes,
if it's still
yeah.
interest?
But I believe we had about, 12 total.
Why just 3 in front of us?
I think those were the 3 that the planning commission felt had the best credentials.
They're not
and I
the
asked
only
this-
3 that we can
Yeah,
consider.
no,
You can
That's
consider
what
whoever
the
you
planning
want.
commission recommended, though.
when did the plan, and I asked, I was at the planning committee, the whole 2.5 hours, I didn't hear any discussion, but so I was just
They
curious.
had an
did
executive
email-
session.
Was there an executive? Okay. Thank you. I personally would rather see all 12 and take a look at them too. These, knowing that these are from the planning commission, I will definitely read these and consider that too. But I'd like to see everybody's for having.
They were sent to us already, right?
They were.
All
I believe
12
so,
of them.
yes.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing is that we're, the planning commission is running without it.
Right.
So I don't know how long we want. Certainly up to you and the planning commission.
But they were the questions I had. I would definitely, I mean, this is why I brought it up at our last meeting in the minutes, I know we definitely want to fill it, but I definitely want to look it over at least another night before making a decision tomorrow. I don't know if anybody has a.
Well, I don't know that we have it on the agenda for tomorrow,
I
but
didn't see it on the agenda,
certainly
or do we
put it
wait
on
till
the
our
agenda.
next mid-month meeting there would be a planning commission meeting prior to that.
Is this before the mid-month meeting? I don't believe.
Oh, yeah, no, it would be the 4th, you're right, or the 3rd week, so we're a week before that.
Could make it at a work session if we,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we tend not to, but
Tend to not
Yeah.
do my.
I'm okay.
Pressing, time, the timeliness is that.
I'm okay with it.
You're not gonna have another planning commission meeting with that.
I'm okay waiting until then, particularly we'll have a week that hopefully the next candidate be able to attend. If everybody else is okay with that.
Well, if you wanna look at the thing, list of the former ones that we sent you before in these 3 and
That's
decide on who you want, if you wanna bring somebody in.
So the process as previously described for review, we spoke of sending all the applicants before the planning commission.
Right.
Having them put forth what they thought might be the most appropriate since they're gonna work with that. And then it would be at the pleasure of the board to either A, choose from those 3, or B, we could invite folks in that we'd like to interview if that is palatable to folks. And talk to each of these 3 and any others that were of interest, and then make a choice from them. So
You can do that.
you could do 6 ways to Tuesday. Just how do you want, how would the
There's
board?
no standard.
And I think this is what I was saying with those better at the time, kind of let it hang.
let's make sure. Stop worrying about the minutes and what is
What do you
the,
want, how you want to?
at the 16th, should we invite these 3 people and in the next day or two, if any of the other board members find anybody else from that list that they also think would be interesting to bring in, invite them to come in as well, and then we'll get to talk to them.
That works, would it be more preferable, again, looking at some of these resumes right here, reading what they do, they may not be able to make a 7:30 morning meeting. Could we have the option for one of our evening meetings?
Well, I can reach out to them.
Yeah,
If they
And I'm
can't
okay.
make themselves available, then we can make an alternative.
And for the record, I'm okay listening to them via Zoom.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mr. Carlson, I believe, is on here, who's one of the people who applied for the planning commission.
And, yeah, I mean, I love the idea of interviewing every candidate, whether Dave has 2, Ken has 1, or maybe nobody has any other. Anybody who wants to come in, I think that's the best move. And that's why I was saying last time that I do feel regardless of what we do here, we should have a plan in place starting next year. It should be something that maybe we should consider. So when we run into this situation next year, we don't waste our time.
But my question is,
deciding how to.
I think, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
The people that are being invited at this point are 3 people that the planning commission has.
Yeah.
And if anybody from this board reaches out to Joe and says, I would like also these 2, 3, whatever it happens to be included in that process. We're not inviting all 12.
We are not.
What if I would like to see the other 9?
Well, then that you have to make that preference known.
So it's clear to me. Is it clear to you?
Yes.
We're gonna get
Is
these.
clear to you?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the 16th meeting, to see if they can attend either in person or via Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, in person would be ideal.
And are you anticipating inviting all 9?
I did.
Because you might as well just tell Joe that now so that we can do it.
Yes,
And we know what we're doing. Let's not be coy about it.
all right. With that settled, anything else? Do we have need this morning for executive session, Mr. Jakowski?
We do not.
We do not. So with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Need a second and all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries.